Pat, it's one of those things that just kind of seems to come out of nowhere, because we were with you the second week in December for our Growing Bolder Picture Day, if you will. You had a personal annual physical a couple of weeks before that, and then had a corporate magic physical a couple of weeks after that. And it was the second physical that the blood work revealed the cancer.
Yeah, that was the full day out at Celebration, and it's a very thorough physical, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., including blood work, which they did early in the morning. So by the end of the day, they had the results. And Dr. Edwards, who was in charge that day, told me at the end of the day that there was something in the blood work that needed further checking, and she recommended what to do. So that started the process of moving that blood work up to one expert after another. But through all of this, Mark, I was oblivious. You know, my body's made of kryptonite. Nothing can touch me, you know. And finally, Dr. Reynolds said, you got a disease. It's multiple myeloma, which I'd never heard of. I've heard of it now. You know.
So you say your body's made of kryptonite, but you literally were told there was a issue of some sort on a Friday, and you ran the Disney Marathon on Sunday.
Yeah, I did. I had signed up for Disney, and you know, that Friday afternoons when Dr. Edwards said there's something here with your blood work that needs further checking, and the Disney Marathon was Sunday, so I strapped him on for my 58th marathon and plodded through it. You know, it was not a particularly jubilant run for me, but I got the job done, got my medal, and but then the next Wednesday, my back exploded. Excruciating pain out of nowhere, pain I'd never felt before, and in retrospect, Mark, that's a sign of multiple myeloma. It is directly linked to severe back pain. Now, I wouldn't have known that then, but as it turns out, that was a hot button. When
you say you had never heard of multiple myeloma, Pat, it is a cancer of the plasma that's in the blood and the bone marrow.
Right.
The prognosis depended upon a lot about how quickly you find it.
Well, yeah, I think that's true, Mark, and how you respond as a patient, your outlook, your optimistic spirit, your faith walk. I think all of that is a vital part of it, plus wonderful medical care, which we have in this community. And as Dr. Reynolds said to me, you'd much rather have multiple myeloma in 2011 than in 1990. And that's the kind of progress they've made with this illness. And then, of course, my trust in the great physician, and people's prayers have just overwhelmed me. And I've been deeply touched by the kindness and the graciousness that people have been showing to me.
Well, we've all learned through you a little bit about this disease, and it is, as they say, incurable, which is the last thing that you want to hear, but they also say at the same time, if you catch it quickly, that it can be put into remission and you can live a normal life. Being the eternal optimist that you are, I know that your mission is remission.
Yeah, we adopted that little slogan. Dr. Reynolds was explaining all this to me one day and said it's not curable, and you're kind of thinking, what? But he said, you want to get into remission, and you can have a normal life with remission. And I asked him, what are the odds of that? He said, well, 75%. And I high-fived him and said, I like that. And then I just kind of casually said, so Doc, in other words, the mission is remission. Well, my kids picked up on that, and some staff guys, and the next thing you know, they got T-shirts and flashing that little slogan around. But I think that's the bottom line. You want to get into remission. And it takes about 4 months, Mark, to determine where you are. So we started in February, and that would mean sometime in June you begin to get some indication, you know, how far along you are.
You move very quickly and aggressively into chemotherapy. How are you responding to that?
Well, that's an interesting experience. You know, we all hear of chemo, but it was the last thing on my mind. The very first thing they did is send me to Florida Hospital for about a 6-hour procedure to put a little device in your chest under the skin called a port. One nurse said to me, it's the greatest invention in the history of medical care, because rather than trying to find veins to get that chemotherapy into you, they just go right into the port. You know, they draw blood from there. They do everything through that little port. You don't feel anything, and you go in for your chemo treatment, which takes about an hour, and they drop the device out of the chemo bag of medicine and right into the port. And then when you're finished, they just pull it out. So this little port is just under my skin right here. But Dr. Reynolds wasted no time and moved very, very fast on the treatment. So I'm grateful for that. Good to have an aggressive doctor, I think.
You mentioned your kids, Pat. You've got 19 children. Was it more difficult tracking them all down or breaking the news to them that Dad has cancer?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. And I remember, my initial reaction was, is there any way we can just deal with this privately and nobody has to know? And well, that became increasingly tougher. Dr. Reynolds made it very clear. He said, you got to call every one of your children and talk to them. Because if you don't, and they find this out in other ways, he said, you're going to lose trust. So when we came to that right moment, I had to get on the phone and call every one of them. And it was very interesting, their reaction. Some were extremely emotional. Some kids I thought that wouldn't cry did, and vice versa. So it's interesting in the moment of crisis how people respond to that. But my children have been super supportive. They've been here to see me, and they check in by phone, and it's really done a really good job of pulling our family together in a way that I don't think anything else could have. We're a tighter unit than we were 2 months ago.
And talk about a platform, Pat. I mean, you are a guy who has been a conduit, if you will, from some very successful people to the rest of us, through the 70-some books that you've written. I did a Google search, Pat Williams plus cancer, about 20 minutes ago, and it returned 246,000 results. Page after page after page of a report that you have cancer on seemingly every publication in the world.
Wow.
A lot of people know about it, which gives you a golden opportunity to do what you really feel called to do and have felt called to do for a long time, and that's help people learn how to battle.
Well, that's interesting, Mark. I would not have known that. I'm waiting. I am viewing this as the next chapter in my life, and call it the cancer chapter. And I'm waiting to see which direction the Lord takes me. But I do know this. I don't want to waste this opportunity to challenge and encourage people. One thing I've learned, Mark, every family in America seems to have had cancer hit them somewhere. Boy, that becomes obvious to me. And every family in America is dealing with tough stuff. Talked to a young executive today whose mother-in-law has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they're in for a long, tough siege. I mean, none of us are immune. And particularly as we age, these tents begin to wear out. But I really want to take advantage of the platform and challenge people about dealing with tough times and handling it. And I'll tell you, Mark, right off the bat, I mean, here's my first challenge. Don't neglect your yearly physical. Every 2 years is not good enough. Don't neglect your yearly physical. And particularly to men who have a tendency to slough it off or don't want to know or afraid to get results. But nothing happens till the physical. And modern medicine is miraculous, really is. But only if the doctor knows what's going on. And there's no sweeter sound after the physical. Everything checks out fine. But if there's something wrong, I sure want to know it.
You know, we share a very good friend and growing Boulder colleague in Wendy Chioji,
Right.
who of course is a breast cancer survivor herself, a very active advocate for other survivors. Have you spoken to Wendy, and what does the support of Wendy, and I know the thousands of others like her, mean to you?
I got a nice call from Wendy, couldn't have been kinder. We had a good visit, and she's a bulldog. You know, I remember here in Orlando when she went through that very publicly and dealt with it courageously up front, didn't duck from it. But boy, oh boy, she's gotten through it and living a very aggressive, physical, fitness-oriented lifestyle, and a real inspiration. Her call meant a great deal, Mark. And I'm finding there's this kind of family of cancer survivors, you know, or remission people. You know, they all want to help each other. There's a whole multiple myeloma organization out there. And I'm hearing from all these people around the country who have gotten through it. Listen, there's been some pretty prominent people, Mel Stottlemyre, the pitcher, and Don Baylor, the longtime American League outfielder, and Sam Walton died from it. And I'll tell you what, his family has established up at the University of Arkansas maybe the finest research center on myeloma, you know, through Sam Walton. Ann Landers, Geraldine Ferraro.
Wow.
I mean, interesting little club out there, and everybody seems to be connected through the illness here. They're all kind of members of the club.
Primarily, these books are you sharing the secrets of success of very successful people. Walt Disney, Michael Jordan, Rich DeVos, Bear Bryant. Is there a single thread, a common denominator that you personally can take from all of this interaction that you find comfort in right now?
They all had enormous problems in their life. They all had difficulties. They all had great challenges that easily could have overwhelmed them, but they didn't quit. They had a vision of what they wanted to do in life, and they felt a great compulsion to go after that vision and not let anything get in the way. So rather than lay down on the side of the road and just say, you know, it's not worth it, or we can't do it, or it's too hard, or there are too many obstacles, they just kept plowing and battling and hanging in there. And so that's one of the teaching points, Mark, to people. Life's hard, it's not easy. You know, there's going to be probably a lot more failure than successes in your life, but learn from the failures. It's not of asking God why, but what? What can I learn? What can I take? On the other side of the crisis, how will I be better?
Is your faith being tested now? Were you ever knocked back on your heels and in a moment of fear say, why me?
Oh, that happened, Mark. I remember getting the first news, and my thought was, wait a minute, Lord, you know, I'm on your side here. I've never drank, I never smoked. My eating habits have been good. I work out aggressively every day. I'm in good health. I'm writing books about you and speaking, and that was my initial thought. And then said, why? And then a little bit later it was, why not? And I finally have come around to what. I've gone from why to why me to what. In other words, okay, I'm teachable, I'm moldable here. There are lessons being taught, Lord, so I want to be a good student. And it's a part of the grand adventure of life, Mark. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm praying for remission, and I just feel that the Lord has more for me to do here on this earth. And it's going to be very exciting to see how this all plays out. But in the meantime, going through the treatment, I don't think I should waste it, particularly in this area of health care. And guys, get your physical, and you know, don't duck from it, don't run from it. You know, deal with the truth. You want to find out, you know, if we can get men turned around, Mark, you know, we could have a huge impact in this country.